Greetings, everyone. I'm so excited to bring you this interview with Dr. Richard Oppenlander. I say that right? Oppenlander?
You did? Yeah, it's perfect.
And he is the author of two books and the director of a nonprofit. We will put these links in the information section. His first book, which I read that just blew me away, is called Comfortably Unaware. And it's around how our eating choices are essentially destroying our environment, our habitat, our air quality, our water quality, our soil quality, our health as humans, many indigenous cultures, and a number of other really important things that are going on in the world around our food production system. There's so much I could say, but I think we'll just jump straight into asking questions. And I hope that after this interview, you will feel compelled, if you haven't read his books, to read them and to check out his websites and to spread this message because it's vitally important for humans everywhere.
In
Right.
terms of the movements you mentioned earlier, like eating less meat, or even these other movements you're mentioning. So the local or the pasture-fed or grass-fed movements are assisting in one direction, possibly, but in so many other directions, or in so many other ways, they're continuing to perpetuate the wasteful use of our resources. And we're not even talking about. We talked a little bit about water, a little bit about land, but also plants mitigate climate change. They take, as you know, they take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and sequester it into the soil, whereas all animals do the opposite. They'll end up, especially livestock. They contribute. I mean, one cow will contribute 4 to 6 tons of greenhouse methane and carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas emissions. Grass-fed will contribute 4 to 6 tons per year, and whereas if you just plant the pasture in food or plants that humans can eat directly, it'll actually mitigate. It'll sequester carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. There's one study that was accomplished by Rodale, another one by another very respectable group in just last year that I'm working through to try to apply it towards plant-based systems for the Conference of the Parties coming up for the climate change conferences in Paris this year. But basically, they stated that if you just converted the cropland, they're trying. In other words, the climate change. Those that are of influence in the climate change conferences of the United Nations are doing all they can to address climate change through fossil fuel use. They're trying to advocate changing light bulbs and moving to hybrid cars and things that they can point their finger at, and basically the fossil fuel use and energy industries. But the fact is that if we don't eliminate our demand and production of animal products, we will never reach the 1.5 to 2 degree centigrade reduction that we need. It won't happen, and you can do the math all day long, and we can talk about that at some point in time. But these studies that I've just mentioned, there one specifically by Rodale, has found that with some of their test groups, test land, they have found that if you just take the current cropland, I mean, most agricultural land can be divided into grossly, globally, can be divided into cropland or pasture. But again, most of the cropland, all the pasture is being used for animal agriculture, and between 75 and 85% of all the cropland is being used for animal agriculture. So if you just converted the cropland from animal agriculture's use to plant-based systems and a planting system that would just you wouldn't need all of it because of efficiencies. But if you just converted it away from animal agriculture, you would end up mitigating 40% of the current greenhouse gas emissions that are anthropogenic, which means that's just cropland. So if you
That's just cropland. That's not grazing land. That's not.
no, pasture is another 71%. So you're over 100%. That if you could convert those lands you're talking about in the neighborhood of like even just, so if you just converted half the cropland, no pasture, you would be able to mitigate somewhere around uh, 8 to 10 gigatons per year of carbon equivalent greenhouse gases, which brings us under the amount. It gets us down to about 40 gigatons per year, which is what climate scientists are shooting for the year 2020 and 2030. So without doing anything to fossil fuels, nothing at all, leaving them just the way they are in terms of burning and electricity use. Just if you only converted half the cropland, no pasture land at all, you'd still be able to stay within the 1.5 degrees centigrade mark. Now,
Yeah.
I would like to take it completely in that direction and say let's get away with, let's eliminate all cropland for animal agriculture, and then you'd be actually mitigating climate change, and you wouldn't have all the problems that we're expected to have.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go off on a small tangent. And for my own research and what I do in my life, like a lot of people ask me, well, what's wrong with the planet getting a little warmer? Like I like the nicer summers, I like the this or that, and people don't seem to understand that it's not just about us. We have these houses, we have all sorts of technology that helps us maintain our environment, but other animals and other plants do not. Like there is people think, like I've heard this argument as well, they're like, well, plants use the carbon dioxide, and so it's just going to be like fertilizer to them, but they don't realize that there's actually, like, at a certain level of CO2, plants will downregulate systems because it's too much for them to handle. They
And
have to respond to their environment in the same way we do. They have to, like, have a sort of homeostatic basis, and they can at sometimes adapt to it, but it requires, in order for them to use more CO2, they have to have more nitrogen. They have to have more, other nutrients. It's not so simple. Like I think the erroneous thing that people like to do when they argue or think about things is they just oversimplify things, and there's a very complex web that we're dealing with. The web of life, and
mm-hmm.
it's not just about a nicer summer.